All right, guys, welcome to Foundation Church. And if I could ask if you're out in the lobby or if you're in the gym, if you come have a seat. And actually, we're going to jump right into worship. I'm so glad you guys are here joining us and with us tonight. A little bit unusual. We're on a Saturday night instead of a Sunday night. But actually, we're recording this, so you might be watching this if you're watching the recording tomorrow morning, too. It'll be live on Facebook tomorrow morning. So looking forward to that. But I'm Nahum Mason. I'm the pastor, lead pastor. My wife is the co-lead pastor, and she's actually going to be giving the message tonight. She's been kind of filling in for me while I've been helping figure out all the media stuff and getting all that going. So hopefully, tonight we've got it all worked out. We were actually done ahead of time. We're starting on time, which is awesome, right? And I see a couple claps back there. Thank you, guys. But I know you guys are excited to get into some worship tonight, aren't you? I am excited too. So why don't you guys go ahead and get us started.
Would you guys stand with us? There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire standing next to me. There was another in the waters holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free, there is a cross that bears the burdens where another died for me. There is another in the fire. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning? Either way, I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire standing next to me. There is another in the waters holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding what power sets me free, there is a grave that holds nobody, and now that power lives in me. There is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Whoa, there is another in the fire. Whoa, and I can see a light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between wears thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things at sea and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters holding back the seas. And should I ever
The oceans push and pull at your command. You hold the moon and stars within your hands, and all with just a breath the world began. God, there's nobody like you, God. There's nobody like you, God. And
my Father's house, right? And I'm a child of God, and we get to live in that glory. And I am so, so blessed that we get that opportunity, that God was so gracious enough to give us that opportunity. Thank you guys so much for some good worship tonight. At this point, we're going to take a 3-minute break. And if you need to use the restroom, grab a drink, say hi to somebody you haven't seen, go ahead and do that right now, and we'll transition, and Kayla will be up here in a minute.
right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started here pretty quick. I realized something. I think this was the first Sunday we've had church without a snowstorm. Am I right? Literally, I think every night we've gone home from church on Sunday night. Well, it's not Sunday night, but I think it's taken us like almost an hour or so to get home. So, it's kind of nice, no snowstorm tonight. All right, so let's get started really quick. We'll pray, and then we'll jump in. Dear God, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for everybody in this room, everybody watching online. We thank you that this message comes directly from you, Jesus, not from me. Directly from you. And you know who it is meant for. But most of all, Jesus, it would bring more people to you. We thank you and we love you. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, so I know we have some people that weren't in here last week. So I'll give a quick recap. I did a sermon, a little series on storms. And last week's was in Mark, okay? And I discussed the disciples in a boat. There was a great storm that came. Jesus was on the boat. He was asleep. He was silent. He was peaceful. You have a major storm going on. The disciples are freaking out, even though Jesus was on the boat. That was the funny part about this, okay? It literally says he's sleeping on the boat. And we talked about, I told, beforehand, there was the story of the little boy at the sack lunch, okay? That's actually today's story. That was the very moment before today's, okay? But we talked about how these two storms were closely related and how there's multiple storms mentioned throughout the Bible. But we discussed that Jesus wants us to see him and feel him in his silence. That was what we took away from that, one of the pieces. But as you probably realized, if anybody actually looked at anything this past week, you realize I did everything backwards in order. And so if I confused you last week, that's why. I did this because, originally I told you last week, when I first started, I actually was confusing my stories. But then I realized, no, I'm going to do this backwards. Last week, I had no clue exactly why I was doing it backwards, until this week I realized God had me do this backwards on purpose. I did this because I saw something specific, something that really stuck out to me, and I was really surprised. So, I'm going to take us all backwards. Okay? So what we did last week, now we're going backwards. So hopefully that makes sense. But I want to warn you. Because I'm saying let's read this all backwards. But the problem is, I'm telling you to read the Bible backwards. But if you do this, I'm just going to let you know, if you read the entire Bible, okay, back cover to front cover, you will find that it's about a man sent to earth on a cross who was helped down by some Romans and told to go on his way. He then travels the world making people go blind and giving them leprosy. So be careful, okay? You don't want to really read it backwards in that sense, because then it's really not going to make sense, okay? Just this part, okay? And I'm sure I'm not allowed to preach anymore, so. You guys want me to get down now? Really? Okay, but seriously, reading things backwards. So what I found is a writer, right before they go to publish a book, there's a lot of proofreading, right? So when I say proofreading, you're thinking mistakes, grammar, different words being changed, commas, periods, question marks. They do that, okay? They will take it and they will go backwards with it because they actually found that they could find more mistakes and it worked out better that way, okay? But what I'm actually talking about is when a writer writes their book, so when they read it front to back, they almost just naturally go through it. They almost just naturally skim it, and then they're realizing, wait a second, I missed some major points in here, because they know the story in their head, but the readers don't know the story. So they found that if they read their stories backwards, paragraph by paragraph, not words, don't go that far, paragraph by paragraph, they realized, wait a second, this story isn't going to make sense to this reader. I missed one of the biggest moments or memories or biggest piece to put in this book. Okay? So stick with me. They also found out they were not just reading through and making assumptions. And I think we do that a lot when we read the Bible too. We start reading so fast that we automatically are making assumptions. Or if you're like me, you're reading just to read sometimes. If you ever find yourself doing that, and then you get like a page in, and you realize you don't even realize what you read because you're scatterbrained. And you're like, wait, I just read all that. I don't even remember what I even read. Okay? So let's think of like movies. That was the other thing I thought about. Okay? They have like secret messages or like secret codes, or they're trying, I think of like National Treasure movies. It's usually decoding or deciphering it backwards. And so I kind of thought this was like what Jesus was doing here. Okay? He wanted everything to be ciphered and decoded backwards. So he took me even further. I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. I'm reading the Bible backwards. I'm preaching this backwards. People are going to think I'm absolutely crazy. This makes no sense. I have no clue what I'm even preaching on now because you just threw this whole backwards thing into me. Now I'm totally lost. Like, literally, I'm lost. So I took a breath. I said, okay, literally piece by piece, show me what you want in this because I'm so confused. So confused. He made it very clear. God speaks backwards. God talks backwards. God does things backwards. Now stay with me. Okay? On these boats, in both these stories, last week's and today's, Jesus had disciples on the boats. Let's think, if we're looking at Jesus, who would, if we look at it in our mindset, who would Jesus choose as a disciple to have on his boat? If we're thinking our way, our human way, we're going to say he's going to be a clean-looking guy. We talked 2 weeks ago about the bloodline being clean. Comes from a great family. He's probably never sinned. He's faithful. He's perfect. He's not a sinner. Okay? But what you're finding is the exact opposite. Jesus actually took the total opposite. I think of Peter, and I told you guys I love Peter. Okay? He was a fisherman. He was rough around the edges. That's the people Jesus wanted. He wanted the tax collector. He wanted the people that had that little bit of a past, and that's what he went after. He didn't even look at the perfect person for that. I also thought, if we're thinking that way, who should God have sent to save the world? Well, it definitely not his one and only son, right? I mean, we didn't even deserve to be saved in the first place. But instead, he did things backwards and he said yes. He said yes to the disciples. He said, yes, I'm going to give my son. Yes, I'm going to save a world of people that are broken and sinning and they do not deserve. But I'm going to say yes. I then thought about this. My kids. Our kids. How many parents in here have had a day, maybe like your summer vacation, where you said yes, more than you usually do? For whatever reason. Maybe they didn't feel good that day, or it was just their birthday. Whatever the occasion. The mismatched outfit. Genesis wears his pants inside out and backwards right now. That's how he comes out of the bathroom every single time. There's some days I just let it go. I just say yes. And you know what? If you want to wear the crazy boots on the wrong feet with it, and that's how you're going to the grocery, now rarely do I say that, but this day we'll say yes. How about going to the store and you're spending way too much money on stuff you know you don't need? You say yes to the candy at the checkout, which you never do. Yes to the clothes. Ice cream before dinner, yes. Okay? That happens sometimes in our house. Cold pizza for breakfast, yes. We have to realize that God doesn't do things like us. That's what we have to understand. I think we just need to understand that, like right now. He's not going to do things like us. He actually, let's think about it, he actually does the opposite of what our worldly mind and what our human nature says is right. Okay? Follow along with me and think about this. But let me add one thing before I dive into this. He's not wrong. We're actually the wrong ones, okay? He's our creator. He's not wrong. His way is right. If you don't get it yet, let's look at how we are taught in the Bible. Okay? Let's look at a couple things really quick through the Bible on how we are taught to operate. The absolute first thing I thought about is death. After all this, it all just kept coming to me, flowing to me. Death. What is death for Christians? We're going home. Death is victory for Christians, right? I mean, that's the ultimate goal for us, is death. So death is victory. What about in Matthew, where it says, last shall be first, and first shall be last? That's backwards. Okay? What about tithing? This is my favorite one. And I could go on with a ton of these guys, but I just pulled out my favorite ones. Tithing. If you're tithing, it doesn't make sense. It's supposed to be the first of everything you are bringing in, okay? So how Nam and I look at this, we're not going to look at what's left after we've paid bills. We're giving what's first. So if we're having a bad month, it doesn't matter. Tithing came first. Something else will have to go without. And you say, well, we've got to have a house and water, and electric and food and clothes on our kids. I understand that. But it comes first. And God always provides more. It doesn't make sense. It's never going to make sense. You could put it on paper with a number person, which is not me, a total math person, and they're going to tell you, yeah, this does not make sense. I don't even know how you guys did this. That's tithing, okay? It's basically breaking a mold. It's breaking a mold that you're supposed to follow and say, instead of saying yes, instead of saying no, you're saying yes. Okay, this is kind of me tonight. Church on a Saturday night with a female preacher. That's breaking a mold. Just being totally honest with you guys. Totally honest. This is not your normal church mold. Some may be offended, some may be angry. I'll tell you right now, this, okay? Everybody should have one of these. And I know we have them on our phones, okay? And I know I put my verses up here, okay? But all my verses are coming from this today. All week, my verses are coming right here from this. This thing is torn apart, pages ripped. I'm sure it has baby slobber. I opened it just a minute ago, realized somebody pulled a page out. I've got River's ultrasound pictures at 20 weeks when we found out he had half a heart. This is everything, guys. This right here has all the answers and the truth to anything you want or need. And in case you don't know this, it's literally the manual we come with when we're born. This is the manual. So when you got that kid you can't figure out, well, open your manual. I mean, that's basically what it is. This book, most importantly, though, it's teaching us something. It's teaching us to be like Jesus. And I love that our leadership, I don't know how long ago it was, they did, and if I'm correct, they did a, what is it? It was 9 weeks of a series of books. I don't know what you call it, guys, sorry. But it was called Like Jesus. And it's exactly what it says. Doing things like Jesus. But I also have to stand here and say tonight that Jesus didn't fit into a mold. He did not fit into a mold. There was a reason for that. There's an absolute reason for Jesus not fitting in a mold. He knew he wouldn't fit into the world's mold, but most of all, he knew we wouldn't fit into the world's mold. He knew that we wouldn't. He knew we were set up for failure. So that's why as disciples, he chose who he chose. He chose what he chose. He didn't say, here's my mold for a perfect disciple. Oh, Peter, you're not even close. You're not even close. You got some work to do, and then maybe you can fit in this mold. That's not what he did. That's why the Word became flesh. Right here. Was so that we could get a yes one day. The Word became flesh so we could get a yes one day. That yes was to get into heaven. Because without this yes, whether you believe it or not, we would have a big fat no way. Like, not happening. There would be no chance for us. Absolutely no chance. With this, we don't need, I said last week, I'm that person that sometimes, and I have to catch myself, quit trying to make sense of it. Quit asking questions. Quit trying to figure it out. Because with this, you're not going to make sense of the process. You're just not. But yes to his promises. Let me explain. I have a really good friend, okay? And she lost her mom, it was about a year ago around this time. Her mom had cancer. And we were talking about it this week, and it caught me. And I was like, gosh, this lines right up with this. She said, so her dad had died years ago. And so she's been living a life with no parents. She said, we did pray for that miracle. And God said no. Family also prayed for her to be healthy, to be whole, to protect her, for her to be happy, that she could live a life pain-free. Well, guess what? My friend actually got her answer to her prayer. She actually got her yes. She actually got her yes. She told me 2 days ago, we were talking, and she said, if my mom was here right now during a pandemic, she'd be miserable. She'd be lonely. She'd be brokenhearted. She would just be a mess. I don't think she'd be okay. She said, my mom right now is reunited with her husband. They'd been apart for 16 years. 16 years. She said she would have been so miserable, and she just kept saying that. They would have not been able to see her or even take care of her. She probably would have been maybe in a rehab facility, a nursing home, a hospital. And if you knew this woman, this was nothing she wanted. She's tough as nails. It would not have been the life she wanted or that her family wanted for her, for anybody involved. My friend got what she prayed for. God tucked a yes. Okay? Listen. God tucked a yes into her heartbreaking, disappointing no that he gave her. My God, she got what she prayed for. We don't need to make sense of the process. Once again, you don't like the process. She died. Even sitting in here, you're probably like, but she died. Quit making sense of the process. But yes to his promises. Here's the thing, guys. It's really hard to trust God by his motives when we're disappointed by his methods. That's what's so hard. We know God's good. We know he's good. We know what he has for us. But we don't like how he does it sometimes. And I preached last week when we said, the disciples got on that boat and they could see where they were going. They were going to the other side. And we said, what has to happen for them to get to the other side is they would have to go through something. And that something happened to be the storm. Turn your Bibles to Matthew 14, 23 through 34. Great, guys. That's going to be hard to see. Can it zoom in a little bit? Please and thank you. Hold on a second, I'll pull mine up. Sorry guys, give us a second. I'll just pull it on here. Thank you, Thomas. Okay. And after he had dismissed the multitudes, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. When it was evening, he was still there alone, but the boat was by this time out on the sea. It was distant from the land, beaten and tossed by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus came to them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost." And they screamed out with fright. But instantly he spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, I am. Stop being afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on water, and he came towards Jesus. But when he perceived and felt the strong wind, he was frightened. And as he began to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Instantly, Jesus reached out his hand and caught and held him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. So we have the boat. And I feel like I'm repeating myself from last week. But we have the boat, and it's getting tossed. Same as last week. It's getting tossed by the sea. The waves are hitting it. We have strong waves, strong wind. There's a difference from last week. Jesus is in the picture, but he's not actually in the boat. Last week he was in the boat. The similarities is Jesus is silent and peaceful, just like he was last week. He's not sleeping this time. What did the verse tell us? It told us he had been praying. He was having basically quiet time. Okay? He was alone praying. He's peaceful, he's silent. Verse 26. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost." And they screamed out with fright. Once again, how many stories do we read through the Bible where the disciples are freaking out? I don't know, sometimes that's kind of comical. Like, I feel like they're just a handful, okay? The disciples are freaking out. I mean, Jesus has his hands full. He really does with these guys. But we have to remember, these aren't your perfect guys. These are worldly guys. They're kind of, let's look at them as, they're still in training. They're terrified. They don't have a ton of faith at this point. They're forgetting also, let's remember this, they're also forgetting that miracle we talked about last week. That was the very moment before this. They're also forgetting that once again, Jesus is close by. All right, raise your hand if you've been afraid before. That should be everybody. We've all been afraid before, okay? Everyone has faced fears. And I'm talking teeny tiny fears to something big, okay? When you're afraid, we hear voices. How many people, when we're afraid, hear voices? Nobody raises their hands. Dawn? Good. I hear voices too. I'm glad we can. He said it's his wife. Oh gosh. Okay, moving on. All right, well, I guess me and Dawn are about the only crazy ones in here that hear voices. But no, seriously, think about it. I want you all to think about a moment you were really, really scared. Like really scared. One of the moments I think about it was a couple years ago, and we had to clean out a gutter. And I realized it was really easy to get up to where I got to clean the gutter out. Or no, I was power spraying something. And I had a bunch of people on the ground encouraging me. Like, it was no big deal to climb up that far. But then I realized how hard it was to get down, because it was a totally different process to get down. And I remember just being like, I'm going to die up here. Like, I'm literally going to die on this roof. Like, this is unreal. Okay, but seriously, think of that moment where you were really, really scared. Did you hear voices? And what I mean by voices, did you have something in your head that said, I can do this? And did you have something at the same time that said you can't do this? Am I right? You've all heard it, okay? We all hear voices. Just kidding. So you hear two voices. There's two. One says you can't. One says you can. One convinces you that there's no absolute way you can do it, and the other one says, let's go, you got this. One is wisdom, one is worry. Okay? But really what those voices are titled is not wisdom and worry, it's titled faith and fear. Verse 28 through 30. And Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. He said, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water, and he came towards Jesus. But when he perceived and felt the strong wind, he was frightened. And as he began to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Once again, just like last week, Jesus is right there. And we will continue to be afraid. Jesus is right there. Not only is he right there, because at this point he's walked on the water, he's there now. He's not distant. He even puts his hand out to him and is looking at him and is saying, I'm here, follow me, come with me. It's okay. Peter was hearing those voices. But the problem was the voice of fear was louder than the voice of faith. That's what he was experiencing. The voice of fear said, dude, you can't walk on water. Like it's not humanly possible to walk on water. That would be like me saying, I'm going to walk off right here, but I'm not going to drop down. I'm just going to keep walking. You're all going to say, that's not possible. It's not. It's not possible for me to do that. You're going to sink and you're going to die in the middle of the sea, right here in front of all of us, Peter. Like, don't do this. And then the whisper, if you notice I said whisper, of the voice of faith says, you just started walking on water. Your first step, you were on water. Keep walking, get your head up. The Son of God is holding his hand out to you. For gosh sake, stay focused. But here's my other question. Why is it that we let one voice be louder than the other? Why do we do that? That irritates me. Why does it irritate me? Because it's something I struggle with. One is surely to kill us, and the other is surely to save us. With Peter, that's what was going to happen. It was a matter of life and death. One sends us backwards, one sends us forwards. We know this. We all know this right now. And you're like, yeah, I do know this. But for some reason, we always tend to listen to which one? Which is the voice of fear. And then what do? We get frustrated. And then we blame God for that, right? Because that's what we do. I'm guilty of it. Faith, on the other hand, unleashes the supernatural when we take that first action step. So that first step that Peter took onto the water, that was putting things into action. It was supernatural. Yeah, we can't walk on water. But it was supernatural when he took his action step. All it took was one step. Just one step. Fear, very simple. It's what sinks you. That's it. It's what sinks you. Verse 31 through 32. Instantly, Jesus reached out his hand and caught and held him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Remember, don't just read it. Look at it. Try to figure out why it's important that this is mentioned. The moment Jesus stepped into the boat, the wind ceased. What we saw was the start of a storm in this whole story. But if you realize, we didn't hear any other description of the storm like we did last week's story. We know it's a storm because what happens when a storm comes? It usually starts with rain or you see the clouds. But a lot of times, like in the summer, what comes first? The wind. We have a bunch of wind come, right? The wind's blowing and the seas and the waves are against the boat. That's what it tells us. But it never actually started to storm that we know of. The moment Jesus walked into the boat, it ceased. So all of this wind and all these waves, the roaring sea, the sky, it all calmed. Everything, instantly. They didn't experience a great storm like our first story. Last week's storm was filling the boat and taking the boat, literally about to take the boat under. We don't have that here. Okay? So where's the storm? We're going backwards. Because what we have to realize is it was never about a storm. It's not even about the storms in our lives. We are so consumed by the storms in our life that we get off track. And you know what I mean by storms. I was so consumed with the idea of storms in the Bible and, oh, what a cool message series, because we have storms in our lives. Oh, that's so cool. But that's not what it's about. We're missing the point here. So if you have a boat that's in a storm, I don't know if anybody's been on a boat in a storm, they're going to tell you they usually get off track. It's hard to see. There's multiple things that go into that. Okay? It sets us back to our destination on the other side. That thing we've been hoping to reach. Okay? Talking about the storms in our life with that. The storm was just the distraction. It was all smoke and mirrors. Hear me out. It was loud and it caused fear. Same way it does to us. With a real storm or the storms in life. It does the exact same thing. Something bad happens and all of a sudden we're scared. But now you're forgetting about what you were even going to do. So you're distracted. Just when you start to get your life together, boom, a storm. But you thought the storm was important. I thought the storm was important. I really did. Because I thought it was going to teach me something. I thought it was going to make me like a better person. I thought that's what we were taught. That's what storms do. I thought it was maybe going to make me stronger. It was preparing me for the next thing, type thing. It's all wrong. I had it all wrong. The things that happen to you. Let's think about it. These storms don't determine where we end up. They don't. It's not what we go through that determines where we end up. It's who we listen to. It's not what we go through that determines where we end up. It's who we listen to. Peter was bold enough to step on the water, but I want you to understand what was happening in that scenario. So Peter's going to take his first step. We're forgetting about the other disciples. What are they doing? They're shrieking in fear. They're behind him. He's not only hearing the internal voices saying, you can't do this, like physically that's not possible. He's got the disciples behind him that are still petrified and thinking that Jesus is a ghost. And they're scared because there's a storm brewing. We know he listened to one voice because he did take that one step. Peter looked crazy. He looked absolutely crazy to everybody on that boat except to Jesus. I hope I look like that tonight. I hope I look absolutely crazy. That's just being honest. I hope I look so crazy that people say, she is crazy for wanting to walk on water to Jesus. But Jesus wanted to see if Peter would look past the internal voices and the voices behind him. What are those voices back here? So you got your two voices you're hearing, faith and fear. But then what do we have? We've got family, we've got friends, we've got spouses, we've got boyfriends, girlfriends that are saying, you know what, you can't do that. You cannot do that. That is impossible. Or maybe they're the ones that are like, yeah, I want nothing to do with this. You go ahead and walk on water. I'll be over here. He wanted to see if Peter would look past the voices, the storm brewing, past the fear, past what the world said was impossible, past what the other disciples thought, to follow him. It was just as simple as taking his hand and taking that first step. Faith doesn't make it easy. Okay? Faith did not make this step easy. He had faith to take that first action step. It didn't make it easy. What did it do? It made it possible. That's the difference. It made it possible. So if I can have the worship team come up. I'll go to verse 33. And those in the boat knelt, and they worshipped him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. Isn't that crazy how quick that changed? Didn't you guys just think he was a ghost? And now you're saying, truly, you are the Son of God. Jesus has a calling and a plan for all of us. All of us. And sometimes I think we need to just quit trying to dress it up before thinking he's going to use us. That's being very honest. There's a purpose for every single person that's sitting in the seats in this room right now, or if you're watching online. And so what I'd ask is if everybody would close their eyes. Everybody. Even kids, close your eyes. By the way, I love how many kids we have in the room tonight. I think that's cool. A lot of you are doubting, and if you are doubting, you're running from it. You can only, and this is my advice to anybody in here that thinks you are running from it for whatever reason you have, whatever excuse you have. If I could be a friend and say, you only have so long that you will be able to run before that voice causes you to sink. Or you can listen to the voice of faith that speaks up and calls you forward, like Peter, to take one little step. It's one little step. That's all it starts with. Peter's one little step in action led others to Jesus that quickly. It wasn't anything Jesus said at that moment or Peter even said at that moment. I don't think there was any talking after that. It was literally them watching. The disciples watched Peter's life and his faith in action. That's what changed things. It was Jesus using Peter. Once again, he was not a perfect man. So quit trying to clean yourself up and clean your life up before you decide you're going to come to Jesus. He wants you right now, just as you are. Let him use you to do something great. I know, because I know there's somebody online or in here tonight, and you know God has been chasing you down and calling you for that first step. And sometimes that first step is maybe there's somebody online that you watch online all the time, and you don't want anybody to know you're watching online because you don't want to come to church. You don't like church. You don't have nice clothes. Maybe that's what it is. Or because you don't want to walk in the church. Well, that could be your first step. Or maybe that first step is you're sitting in here and you're saying, you know what? I come in here and I sit, I listen online, but you know what? I have a lot of good to offer, and so I really need to step up and I need to get involved. Then that's your first step. And if you're the person that says, you know what, I've never even done the Jesus thing or the church thing, and you say, you know what, I want to take that first step, I don't know what that is. Comment, because I guarantee you, I know there will be people that will jump on here, they will pray with you. If you want us to contact you, we can. But if you're in here tonight and you say, you know what, that's me, just raise your hand really quick. And you say, I want to take, even if you do know Jesus, let's say you do know Jesus, you've been church your entire life, but you say, you know what, I need to take a small step that God's been calling me to take. I need to take that little step. If that's you, raise your hand. I'm going to pray and close this really quick, and then the worship team is going to take over. Dear God, I thank you for tonight, and I thank you for your word. I thank you for this Bible that's in my hand and how powerful it is. I love that you do things backwards. I love that it's the opposite. I love that it's unconventional. I love that you have allowed me and called me to stand up here on a Saturday night. I love that you choose the broken, the misfits, people, majority of the time, that are forgotten or overlooked, the insignificant. And I love that that's what you want, that's what you choose to use. I thank you for the hearts tonight, Jesus, that your message is reaching, and that they won't continue to run, the ones that know they're running from that message, but they'll realize they just need to take one little step. That's all it is. It's nothing scary. We thank you and we love you, Jesus, for the gift of life that you've given us, for the victory you have given us. In your precious and holy name we pray. Amen.
Would you please stand?
Lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love
No, that's fine. Go ahead. They did a great job. There we go. They did a great job. I love the worship. Kayla, thank you. Kayla, man, was that not a good message that Kayla had tonight? I'll tell you what, it is so difficult to take those steps that seem like they're the backwards or the opposite of what would be what normal or natural to us. And man, I tell you what, challenge me as I go into this week. So thank you, Kayla, so much. I just have a couple announcements to share with you guys before we're done tonight. One is that if you're in here and you want to give, you can go ahead and do so. We have envelopes back there that you can use, and the buckets that we have in the room, the orange buckets, Home Depot buckets, just like we've always done. Or if you want to give online, you can do that as well. Or you can send it to our P.O. Box 39, Granville, Ohio. And then I have a couple more announcements. Actually, we're getting into this more and more, and so we're having more going on. So it's exciting to get back to service and have more going on. So one thing that I want to let you guys know about that I'm excited that we've been the past several weeks meeting as a leadership. Judah's not going to let me alone up here. It's okay. Hi, buddy. So we've been meeting every Wednesday night as a leadership, and it's been good because we're starting to get back into the rhythm or the groove of things, and we're starting to head towards the direction that we feel God's leading us as a church. And so one of those things that God put on our heart was to figure out, as we are receiving tithe and offering, as we are supposed to give 10% of our own income, we feel the same way as a church. We want to give at least 10%. I want to get to the place where we're giving more than that, right? We want to be generous givers. And so our first thing that we're going to be giving 10% to is this facility. They let us, this church, Family of Faith Church, they let us meet here for free. They don't charge us anything. And whenever I say something to them about it, they say it's our blessing. Man, how awesome is that? Right? Us meeting here is blessing them. And so we want to be a blessing to them, right? As they're entering into this year, one of the things that God put on their heart was to get out of debt. And so they have two debts right now. They have what's the little bit that's left with this building, and then their parking lot. And when they repaved their parking lot, they had taken out a loan several years ago to do that. So they're wanting to finish that. So you'll notice if you're in here, out in the entryway, over on the right side, there's a chart up on the wall, and it looks like parking spaces, and it looks like cars in the parking spaces, right? There's not that many of them full. So we as a church, we're going to help them with that, because every parking space represents someone that's willing to give $80 a month for the rest of the year, and if they fill up all those parking spaces, that parking lot will be paid off this year. So we're going to help them with that as a church, and we're going to be putting to start one car up there on the wall to help them, and we're going to keep working on that with them. So I want to let you guys know that, because I think it's important as you guys give to Foundation Church that we're giving as well, and we're trying to be a blessing to those with the money that we're receiving. So that's, I just wanted to share with you. It's exciting that they get to bless us, and they say it's their blessing. Well, now we get to bless them too. So that's awesome. One other announcement that I have tonight, last thing I have for you guys, is that Brent Close, he's on our leadership team. He's going to come up here. He's had something on his heart that he wants to do as kind of like a I don't know if you call it a Bible study, but just to the young, get the young men together and have something to rally around, right? And so I'm gonna go ahead and have Brent come up here, and he's gonna talk about that just for a moment.
All right, just take a couple minutes. It is a Bible study or discussion, and we're going to start it on Wednesday nights, this Wednesday, 7 p.m. Correct? 7 p.m. The location, we don't have a location set in stone yet, but Nahum's going to get that. We'll have one by Wednesday, by 7 p.m. Or hopefully before that, so we can get there. And then it will be in Licking County, so you know, maybe a half hour before or something like that. But this one is it's a young men's Bible study, so anywhere between 15 and 85. If you're in that age group, we'll have something for you. Hopefully, God definitely has something for you on this subject. It's going to be a discussion of the book of Proverbs, and the Proverbs is God's guide for the real man, and that's kind of a joke, but the first several verses we'll go over. That's exactly what Proverbs was written by Solomon. Most of it was by King Solomon for his sons. Okay. Now, of course, it translates for women too, but we're gonna talk about men. We're gonna talk about what the modern culture says is a real man, and what God says is a real man, and there's definitely going to be some controversy there. So, if you want to have a good time, Wednesday nights, it's going to be about an hour-ish. We're trying to not make it too long, so.
I have some important questions.
Yes.
Is there going to be food?
You're cooking?
Oh, no, I didn't say.
Oh, okay.
All right. No. That's still the question. I should have said one important question.
Oh, okay. We haven't got that far.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I am excited. When Brent said he wanted to do this, we actually talked about it, and I think at first how it was brought up was you were kind of like, Nahum, do we want to do something? And I said, I don't. If you do, go right ahead. I said, but I want to go and I want to be a part of it just to hang out, just to build relationships with the people that are there, and hopefully grow myself. Right? So that's what I'm hoping and I'm coming expecting for. So I'm excited. Thank you, Brent, for being willing to do that. So, well, that is all we have. And guys, if you are watching online or in here, we're going to be back to Sunday nights tomorrow or next week. If you want to watch service again and you're in here and you want to watch it again, we're going to put it on at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. It'll be on Facebook for everybody to see. So thank you guys for joining us here in person and online, and we'll see you next week.